Howdy, it's Liz again from Our Wild Ride on Etsy and JunkJournalJam.com. I just put together this little book that I've been working on, and I wanted to show it to you for a particular reason. A lot of the people who are interested in junk journaling like the papers, they like the assembly, they like the idea of junk journaling, but they're really not drawn to the vintage look that a lot of the junk journals encompass. And this particular journal, oh, let me check to see if I have it right side up. Oh, I do. This particular journal I made with a digital paper collection from Digital Curio, and I think it's pink, shabby flowers, something like that. But it was a very light color collection. And it did not want to be antiqued. It wanted to stay light and bright. And I wanted to show you a couple of the techniques I did to keep it light and bright. I made this in sort of a notebook style with the 3 rings, which I like to use because it gives me the ability to rearrange the papers, take them out, sew on them, add new papers. If I really screw something up, it gets torn, it gets damaged, I can take it out. I almost have a never-ending junk journal that I use for my personal journal that I take the papers out and add new ones as I need them. If I'm feeling really wordy one day, I can add in a whole bunch of lined paper and capture my thoughts. And then if I make a list that is out of date once I accomplish the items, I kind of use it as a bullet journal too. Then I can take that out and replace it with something else. I also have been playing with my new eyelet maker, which I just love. It punches the holes and does the eyelet, which makes these rings possible. So I quite like that. So in this book, instead of using vintage photo or some other darkener around the edges, I used color. And that is one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about. I picked 4 different colors of the Tim Holtz little distress inks, and I did the edges so that they would coordinate. There's a pink, there's a paler peachy pink, there's a blue, and there's a green. Because one of the things that the vintage photo gives for you around the edges is definition. And you can see that you still have definition around this little tag, but it's a color. It's not dark and vintagey. I also used white lace instead of off-white lace, and I used these little deckled lavender papers, which on camera I think are coming across as a little bit gray. I didn't do anything to the edges of the papers. Lots of people antique them. With the vintage photo, I didn't do that. To keep the pages, the white pages, from looking completely stark, I used a stencil and then lightly went over it with the 4 coordinating colors that I had chosen to outline the items in. And you'll see here that I have outlined the tag in green, I outlined this piece of paper in pink, and this one in green as well. So I'm getting definition on the items. I also sewed on here with an off-white color, which makes a big difference when you're using a neutral color as opposed to a darker color. You get a little bit of visual interest, but you're not getting that oppressive darkness. I also tried to keep all of the colors fairly light. You can see this one's a little bit more vivid. I did leave the white backs in here. This is intended as a place to be written in and to encourage writing. A couple of places stamped with a line stamp that I picked up someplace. I think I got it at a garage sale. This is a Stampin' Up stamp, I think, an old one. And I have a couple of different lines that I used. But I did it lightly so if they wanted to put something else on there, they could. I am not afraid of the empty white pages. I know they bother a lot of people. I'm not that worried. I also do mix vintage papers and antique things with modern things, because if you're trying to get everything white or off-white, you're just going to be frustrated. It helps to adopt a more open attitude, and these provide contrast. They're interesting. This is probably one of the more bright or darker things that's in here, and I like it. Once again, I outlined this printed paper. I used green, actually. I did go through and do some tests. The blue on anything except stark white made it look kind of dingy. If you've ever had a new pair of blue jeans you put into the washing machine with some whites and had them come out sort of blue-gray, that's how it looked when it was done. This is the pale peach around this butterfly tag and the blue around the ticket. And you may not even be able to see the stitching. It is fairly faint. And then at the bottom of the page, I did, again, the green through the stencil. My husband's been making these for me. I just love them. I love it when the pink shows through. And I just wanted to do this to show you that you can keep it really light and bright and still have definition on your tags so that they stand out without looking antique. Again, pink around this one, pink around this one, green around this one, peach around this one. But it's still, if you look at it, it looks light. So I'm just going to do a quick flip through so that you can see. I think I've highlighted the different techniques that I wanted to talk to you about. This torn paper, I didn't even highlight the edges, just to give it that fresh feel. Did use some washi tape. And again, the blue highlights. For a couple of the tuck spots that I made, I used a very stark white paper, which ordinary, I think a lot of people would stray from, but the cream was going to look a little strange with this pale pink, I think. It's another pink tag with an owl. Isn't that cute? I also tried to go with some clear colors, but this gives you kind of a vintage feel right here. That one is not as clear a color, but it is found in the papers that I am using. And I used white background for the word that I used instead of off-white. And here I used a not quite pure white paper to go as a background. It's not quite a white image. So it blends, but it still stays on the lighter edge of the spectrum. It's one of my favorite tags. I just love that. My husband's been printing me off these little minis to use for my small stuff. Again, the white text and the white paper. It's a little pocket, by the way. It's a large pocket. And here I used an off-white stamp on a white tag with green outlining. And blue, green, pink, and a pink stamp in the background. Some of these are digital papers that I printed off online. Now this one, I'll show you this one. I did use a little bit of antiquing on this. This is a sticker, and I didn't like the giant white outline around this sticker. So I did use, I think it's linen color, not Vintage Photo. It's not as dark as tea dye, but I think it's linen. Just to knock back that white outline around the sticker a little bit. That's that, and I think the one with the bird cage, which had the same issue. It's the only place I used something that you would think of as antiquing. And here's a cute one with blue, giving that edge definition. And again, I'm using the mixture of the white and the off-white papers, because this collection also uses white and off-white. You can see it's a cream color background, but it has the white polka dots, and there's white in the flowers for the highlights. So I was free to use either. And again, the blue stencil, green and pink highlighting around those items. Vintage page. This is probably one of the most vintage pages in here. Vintage and vintage looking. And then at the back, again, the darker color, but the tag with the white tag, green stamping, blue edges. I think it worked pretty well. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're inspired. If the vintage look isn't your thing, I think you can see that you can make a lovely light-colored, non-antiqued, but still have your items highlighted kind of junk journal. Thanks so much for looking. Hope you have a great day.